everyone. Welcome to the next episode of The Latest Thread. We're glad you could join us. Today's topic, we're going to talk about applique on the long arm. Applique is just one of the things you can, do on the long arm directly. There's couching, you can do the binding on the long arm. There's all kinds of things that you wouldn't necessarily think of aside from quilting. But today we're just going to focus on the applique. And Sharon's going to share a few pictures and then we're going to talk about them.
Oh, I get to be first.
I'm shocked.
So was I. I was like, this is my picture, but I'm never first.
Did something different today to keep you guys on your toes.
So this is actually a little tutorial that's on gamel.com, and I'll include the link, when we air this, on this little project, which is actually pieced and appliqued on the long arm. But I thought that it fit in well here.
I have to make that really small to be able to move to the next.
That's a free tutorial, so you can all watch it, no problem. Oh, that's the back first. I wanted to see the front first, but that's okay.
Well, let me go there. How about that?
This is just a little sample from a class that I have on applique on the long arm. And can you zoom in on them, Sharon?
Yeah.
So it's nine different stitches that I went around with, but like the first one's just like a raw edge stitch. The second one is 2 stitches and 2 stitches and like a zigzag. And the third one is little loopies. And then we have a buttonhole stitch or blankets. I know blanket stitch, right? I don't remember what's that called.
That's blanket stitch, yeah.
Blanket stitch. And then the next one's like just a crazy zigzag, like a really free-formed, not satin stitch because it's not that thick. And then just some scallops to hold that edge down. And then the last 3 are little asterisks, like stars, and then just an S curve that I went around twice, and then little lollipops just because I like them. So, and then that other picture shows the back. So you can see it truly goes through to the back of your quilt, but yeah.
Great visual.
Yeah.
Mm.
So.
Okay, and this is just a sample of, in this particular case, I used the top stitch on the hexagons. And in order to place your shapes, if you're using shapes, whether it's hexagons or the leaves Karen was using, I like to use an double-sided interfacing. That way I can play around with the shapes and place them randomly and move them if I don't like it. It's also easier when you do the stitching, because they're in place already and you don't have to worry about them shifting as you're doing the stitches on your applique.
And see, you're brave. I just throw my fabric down and a little tack of glue and hope for the best.
Well, glue does, glue works as well, but I like the fact that in this case, I like to use Steam and Seam Light 2, and it's not thick. So I'm sure there's other brands that work equally well, but what I liked about it is that you can reposition.
And like all my leaves were different shapes on purpose. That way I don't have to be consistent. And like with yours, that shape has to line up perfectly. So yeah, the Steam and Seam would probably make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Options for different scenarios, right?
Mm-hmm. And this is just another sample. This was applique and couching. And I wanted to talk about, that certain materials lend themselves better for applique on the long arm. In this case, the petals are the cork fabric. And that way you don't have to worry about raveling. And I did use a zigzag stitch. I did use the fusible as well, again, to make sure it's staying there where I want it. And then it's super easy to use whatever stitch to applique.
I like that.
Mhm.
It makes it nice, I think, for especially for like a wall hanging, you
Mhm.
know, because you're never gonna you know what I mean? It's not getting handled so much, and then it doesn't take so long to make it. So this one's mine, and this is I've showed this in the past, and it was all fusible applique, all the colored pieces, and I put them down there, and I thought in my head it'll be so much easier because I'll just hook them on as I was using the couching, you know, which was with just doing it hand guided, you know, with the little back and forth zigzaggy. As I couch, I'll also be, you know, sewing it on. Well, it took forever. I mean, forever. I could have done it by hand and it would have been faster. So, you know, sometimes, in my case, pretty often, it takes way longer than I envision.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was all right. And this was the same thing. It was fusible applique, and I'm not a fan because I'm just always worried that it's going to come off. That's all. So this one, then I couched, and same thing. You know, I think the problem with the fusible sometimes is that depending on which one you use, they're stiff.
Mhm.
And so if you don't catch it, it'll go, it's like so stiff, I guess, that you really can tell.
Yeah.
You know what I don't know if that makes sense. So, you know, then the couching kind of hit it on this.
But I have
So I got to ask you go ahead if you want to.
well, I have a client that brings me just fused quilt tops. And the one time I like opened it up out of the tub it was in, and all the pieces are just everywhere. Like
Yep.
the fusible
no.
did not stay fused.
Uh-oh.
So
I have a question about this one, Jody, then. Did you quilt all of your gray fabric in the background first and then your applique shapes on top, or did you make your applique like you placed
No,
it?
they were there. They were, because they're fused on. I fused them on with fusible. So
Yeah.
they were there when I quilted the background, and then
But I suppose you could, like your background is more coverage than your applique is. So you could do that. Like if you had like a really nice background, you could do that first and then couch something over top of it, right?
and in this one, yes, for sure. But I did do that one time years ago. I thought the same thing. I'm like, it'd be cool because then the quilting's going behind it.
did it
But you know
show
what
through?
happened? You can see
Mhm.
once I washed it, you know, it got softer, and then you could see the quilting lines. Not you couldn't physically see the stitching, but you could see all of the texture
Yeah.
on the, behind the
Oh.
shape.
Good to know.
Very
And
cool.
that's that little one. So there was a lot of it to do.
Was that all the same piece of fabric? Felt like it looks like kind of like tie-dyed or something. Was that all
Yeah.
the same fabric?
Yeah, it
Just
was.
nice.
Well, it wasn't cut out of one piece. They were all individual pieces.
Oh, okay. No, but I mean, like it was all those individual parts were all from the same piece of fabric.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. I get a feeling of like, I don't know, ladybug. The thing I get when I see
So
some of
that's
these,
the corner. Yeah.
Yeah, the right-hand corner especially.
I'm like, I'm seeing ladybugs.
And then this one's probably my favorite way to do the applique on the long arm. And that's by so these are felt pieces. The feathers are cut out of a piece of felt. And then I just fused them onto a piece of hand-dyed fabric and then laid a sheer over top.
Mhm.
Because then as I stitched around, I could just go in just the tiniest bit and grab them here and there, because now they're encapsulated. They can't move.
Mm-hmm.
And like quick as can be, because you don't have to sew anything, which is always good.
They're all mixed up today. Okay, so this is just another example of, can you zoom in a little bit?
I like that rec rack. Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. And that's the fun part. You don't have to just use fabric. You can use rickrack. You can use all kinds of fiber. Again, there was couching in there as well in the center of the hexagon. But yeah, then I did use the blanket stitch around the hexagon. And because that one, even though on the cork it wasn't necessary, but on cotton fabric, that is definitely a better way of doing it if you want to make sure that your edges aren't fraying.
Mhm.
And yeah.
So this one's mine. And this one too, I mean, it was fusible. Oh no, this wasn't fusible. This was I just cut shapes randomly, to fit ideally together. And I used a glue stick, and I just, smeared the glue all over the back and then ironed it on to my fabric. And then I did the little loopy zigzaggy thing to hold them together. So it was nice because I could overlap them, like piecing, I guess, and then catch both, catch two at once.
So like a scribble stitch where it's just
Yeah.
random.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a really easy way. Like if you have let's say you had an idea for a quilt or something and you just want to see what it might look like, you can just cut the things out, fuse them down or glue them down, and then at least, see
Get
what
that
you're going to
visual. Mhm.
get. Mm-hmm.
So did you change colors of thread? Because your thread is going on back and forth between two different colors.
No, it's just 60 weight gray.
Okay. And you use the 60 weight gray through all of those colors? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's for all the non-believers that don't think the gray will blend.
Yeah. Yeah. It really well.
Gray always works.
Yeah.
It just really does.
It's like a little chameleon. No matter what color it hits, it just blends right in.
Yeah, you just have to hit the right, shade in regards to light, medium,
Yeah.
in between, dark. Luckily, there's lots available.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quilting a quilt right now that's all kind of crazy colors, like from really bright orange to some red, I think. And then the background is super light gray. And I'm using the same thread I used on this. You can't see it really anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, that's our last picture.
There we go.
Hey, do you want to add anything?
Just
No?
well, I tried to, but you cut me off. I think people should do that. Just cut some random shapes out of fabric, throw it on some scrap fabric with batting, and just see what stitches work for you and which ones you like.
Mhm.
I mean, like Sharon has never tried it, but I want her to do a little test sample. See
But now I'm inspired, right? Like, and I love that. Like, it doesn't matter where you're at in your quilting journey, you're always gonna learn something new, right?
Yeah.
So for me now, I can kind of visualize some of that. So I haven't been exposed to that or even looked at any pictures of it. So now I can kind of like, okay, how can I do this in my own creative way?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing everybody else can do, is kind of put their own spin on it and try different things. It's kind of a fun idea.
Yeah, and especially like we said, that you can play around with different materials other than just cotton, just the playtime, I guess.
Well, that's what all the great ideas are sparked from playtime, I think. Like,
Yeah, and you can do just something really little. It doesn't have to be
Right.
like a major undertaking.
something small.
All right, I guess that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.